Okay, now we're talking happiness. What a weird subject in a leadership and management class, right? Like, have you ever, I mean, you've done your degrees, etc., business school. Have you ever talked about happiness there?
No.
I don't think so, no.
Though we've talked a lot about unhappiness and stress.
Unhappiness and stress. Okay. Well, I'm just going to ask you this question. Like, do you recall a moment when you felt like you were really, truly happy? Not only at work, but just in general. And just share that briefly.
I'll go.
Okay.
So my favorite thing to do is explore new cities on foot, on my own. And I spent a summer in Paris, France, and I was taking French classes at this school called Alliance Française. So I had a team of like 12 or 13 of students and colleagues, and we would just walk around the city, and I just loved it so much. You know, you're completely absorbed in a new place with new stimuli, and we talked earlier about the drive to comprehend. You're really taking in everything, but you're also bonding with other people who are going through the same experience.
Oh, okay. So you were doing it together, not by yourself?
Yes, we're doing it together. So it was very much kind of like a study abroad experience because it was a summer course. So there was also that bond as well, experiencing that with other people.
Great. Any moment that pops up for you, or?
I'm generally a pretty happy person, pretty even keel, which is actually new for me. I mean, I was an angsty teenager, but since college, so there are definitely moments where I reached peak happiness. Like we just picked out a puppy, and that was sitting in a pen of 12 very fat labs was peak happiness. But I think since graduating and the stress of leaving business school, and in terms of environments, it's a pretty toxic one just because you're with these same people over and over in one classroom or one building, and everyone has become adults, and all of a sudden you put them back in a school environment and everyone's high school again, and it's a very weird adjustment. So being out of that and being back to feeling like an adult has really just put me back in a much more happy place. So I think
when you say that adult, what do you?
Not the business school is catty, and it's gossipy, and people. Obviously gossip is currency, and it always is. Whether you're in an office place, whether you're in school, it's always currency knowing something about someone else. But in business school, whether it's true or not, it's currency, and it gets dramatic. And I was the unfortunate idiot who dated someone in my own cohort, and that was bad. Not the relationship, but the gossip and everything, and it just took a toll on my happiness because you felt like you couldn't really trust anyone, and you felt that people said things just to say things, and so being out of that environment and being in a place where your friends are really your friends, and there's trust built again, and you know that no one's looking to use this currency and talk about you behind your back to another group is really calming. So I think for me, now I'm at a much happier place than I was in business school, and that's not to say that I didn't love business school. I did. I had a great time. I learned so much, and I think that the drive to comprehend definitely outdid any other drive. Because, like I mentioned previously, I love school, but I think now, I'm just in a happier place.
Great. Okay. Interesting. Great. So it's weird to talk about happiness, and when we ask people what they want in life, they say success, all these kind of things.
Unless you're John Lennon.
And then what else? Why would you want it, right? I do this with my students in undergrad. Why do you want to be success? And I ask them 5 times why, right? At the end, oftentimes people say, because I just want to be happy, right? Would you agree? Is that sort of your ultimate currency?
Yeah, I think being happy is so important, but I don't know necessarily if success is what dictates happiness. I think it can add to happiness, but I don't think it necessarily is why you're happy. I think you can be happy because you have a really great relationship. You have really great relationships, whether it's with your family, a significant other, your friends, people that can help you create happiness. And I think it's also being able to be happy alone, and do things that you enjoy, whether it's walking on foot or reading a book or hanging by the pool. There's ways to pick your happiness, and I think that's a vital thing, is people just assume that happiness comes because you're successful. And what I've learned and through years of trying is that you have to choose to be happy. And I think that's a hard choice to make because you rely on external factors to make you happy.
Interesting. Does that resonate with you?
So I definitely believe that we rely on a lot of external implications to make us happy. A lot of the readings talked about this search for happiness, and that's the number one drive. And I don't necessarily think that's the case for me. And maybe this is because of therapy, but I really tried to come to a point where it's not just about being happy. It's about understanding that happiness will come and go, tumultuous times will come and go, and sort of being okay with that, because what really fulfills me more so than currency is actually creating things. Like I'm a content strategist and writer, so when I actually produce good work, and I know that it's a cliche, but a lot of times when in your darkest moments is when you have these bursts of creativity which you can look back on later and then be really proud of. So it's kind of about flowing through both the happiness and the darkness, kind of in a more mindful state, and not letting it consume you. Because I think that if anyone were always happy, they would just be ridiculous. But then we're always attaching happiness to certain outcomes. If I get this, I will be happy. And then that is just where a lot of us kind of are led astray.
I think also what is happiness? I think that it's so dependent on things. Is it just a state of being content?
Yeah.
Is it just a state of being okay with where things stand, the good, the bad? Or is it that giddy, sitting in a pen full of puppies? Is that happiness? What is it to you? But speaking of darkness, there's this quote that I always think of, and it's someone gave me a box of darkness. This too, I realized, was a gift. And I think it's understanding that those times will come, and what you learn from them are so important and so vital that it'll only add to your happiness. But you can also be happy in those dark times and appreciative of them. And I think that's a very hard thing to do, but it's something, once again, that you can choose to do.
Right. So this is a philosophical conversation, right, in many ways. And I think it's a very important one because people say ultimately they want to be happy. So all the success markers and all of the things that we're talking about as external, they do matter. And oftentimes they are also the reasons for unhappiness, because many people are trying to chase external kind of gold rings or whatever recognitions. And once they get it, they have a short burst of appreciation from the outside, and then they're miserable again. And we see this especially in management, in business, etc., where people say, okay, once I get there, I'm going to be happy. I want to be CEO. When I'm CEO, I'm in charge. I'm going to be happy. I can do whatever I want.
Until you realize you have pressure.
Until that doesn't pan out, and say, okay, you know what? That's not going to make you happy either. And so midlife crisis is a big thing, right? We have quarter life crisis.
Well, it's becoming a huge too for us. Our generation, quarter life crises are really big. You see a lot of burnout, and I think it's because we, as a generation, are pushed so much to do so much at a young age. What you're expected of to get into college now is crazy compared to what my parents were. My dad played a sport and had good grades and went to Harvard. That would not fly today. I have to have be all American and great grades and the drama lead and all this. And so we're putting so much pressure on young kids now that by the time you get to 25, you have A, no idea how to function without all that stimuli, but B, you didn't even have time to think about being happy because you were so scheduled and structured that now it's I have all this free time and it's what do I do, and you feel this burnout. And I think happiness is something that we don't emphasize enough with kids growing up. You're happy till you're 5 because you're doing whatever you want, but all of a sudden a structured life exists, and it's all about getting into the college of your dreams, and then your grad school, and then your job.
Well, and that's sort of what I'm going through as a parent. It's what's the point of preparing them for a good school? What's the point of paying for all the kind of activities? What's the point of that? It seems in the American context, at least, it's okay, to get into a good school, to get into a job, which a good job means one that pays well.
Right, exactly.
right? So it's all oriented along the drive to acquire. And the drive to comprehend and school and all of that is just a means to acquire something, which then at the other end is sort of saying, okay, you acquire, success means wealth, means happiness. And that equation breaks down. That's quarter life crisis, right? When you sort of hit that and say, you know what, it doesn't work that way. I've been successful. I've been doing all the things I've been asked to do, and yet here I am. I hate life. I want to do drugs. I want to do something else, right? We have a huge opioid crisis.
Right.
We have all of these people being depressed. And it seems like there's something off, right? And I think the best way to understand it is like we're not balancing those four drives. We're completely trying to get at the drive to acquire, chasing ever more, whatever success markers from the outside. And we're not able to sort of have the kind of relationships that do give us lasting happiness. We don't have the kind of understanding of the world around us that does provide for this understanding that, yes, happiness may be a place to visit, right? And there will be dark moments, and how you choose it to live, that's sort of something that is actually something you need to learn and practice. And that kind of balance, that's a skill, right?
I think like thinking about parents and thinking about now, especially like my parents, but then now even more, our generation starting to have kids, and it's like the helicopter parents. And so even the bond of parent to child, which should be loving, and as you become an adult, friendly. Like I feel like I'm friends with my parents. Would not have said that 10 years ago, but now like, you know, we talk about everything, and they're very much my friend, but I still sometimes need them to parent me, and sometimes I'm at a loss of what to do, and I appreciate their guidance. But I think that's because they didn't helicopter. They were pretty much, well, my mother was a little bit. My dad was very hands-off in the sense of like, do your homework, I'm not going to check in. Like, it's on you to get it done. I will check in the morning if it's done, but like I'm not going to sit here and watch you. But I think now we're even ruining that bond with parent to child, because parents are micromanaging their kids so much that it's building resentment. So like the bond that you should just have that's so easy at times, and it's difficult at others, but like it's the one that's built into your life, is also becoming kind of fragmented.
Interesting, and I think we can have a long conversation about all this, because it's really, that's a fundamental human question, right? And I want to bring it back to you students, because this is a conversation that is, I think, very important, and it's not had enough in business school, in schools in general, in society in general. We think we have it all figured out, that more is better, right? So I bring in my favorite sort of breakfast thing. This is, I think, how we typically end up leading our life, whether we are in China, whether we are in Europe, whether we are in the US, anywhere. More is better. More of some kind of external marker, right? More power, more wealth, more status, and that is equated with happiness, flourishing, and well-being. And that is not quite true, and we find that out painfully midlife, quarter life, and some of us earlier than that, right? And so here is this other model that I think really better is more. When we understand that better is more, that more is better, that we have this need for being fully human, dignity, to have that dignity recognized, which I think is the balance of the four drives at a minimum level. And that we respect those outer boundaries, that we can say, okay, you know what? Within here, I can balance, I can thrive, and I can explore new cities, I can explore new jobs, I can explore a couple of things in my world, be balanced with the kind of people doing what I wish I would want to do, self-determined to some degree, pursuing the drive to acquire in whatever way it is necessary, but not at the cost of the other drives, right? Because what we find is that most people that suffer, that are otherwise successful, quote unquote, they don't have very good friends. They have basically given up on their family. Many of the people in successful positions are divorced. They do drugs. They are otherwise not excited about life. And they become abusive. They become the assholes, right? Because they have mistreated themselves in a way to sort of get to a place where they think they can be happy. And it's this kind of culture that I think, and other people have said this, is producing the kind of outcomes that we're seeing in organizations, where there's low trust, low engagement, where there's a society that has the kind of social inequality, the social problems, and the environmental problems. Because we consume, we rob the planet of all the resources, and then we dump them. And we have all this toxicity, literally, in the environment, because we're sort of not able to honor our own wishes for what it means to be flourishing. because we keep consuming, we try to get more stuff. My wife, when she's unhappy, she buys a dress. Then we have 10 dresses
do
there,
that.
right? This is a natural kind of thing. It does work. It does work, but it's momentary, right? And it's sort of having. We're trying to achieve happiness through having, rather than being. And I think this is important. Once you were describing the places where you love to work, that's more of a place where you can be, right? Be more fully human, be more fully yourself, and explore what that actually means, because it's not just like here is you, here's Mimi, here's Nadja. No, you're going to develop that, right? And we're calling this flourishing, okay? It's not happiness, actually. It's the process, how you grow, how you flourish, how you become more of who you actually can be. And students, this is actually quite important for good management. When you understand that process for yourself, you can actually see and help with that process in others. And that's what the good leaders are. That's your manager that you admire, right? That you're actually friends with. Those are people that do that intuitively, possibly, and they can learn that. Sometimes through life experiences, sometimes through sort of reflection. So I encourage you to think more about these kind of questions, because they're ultimately quite critical. And we're not talking about these questions enough, because I think that's the root. That's the root of all the problems we're facing and we have been discussing so far. Thank you.